Okay, let's continue with the previous example, and let's just draw the information that we had there. So we basically had a table, and so we had here the number of cookies, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we had the total utility. Of course, if there is 0, there is none, but then the development of utility was 4, 7, 9, 10, and then we calculated the marginal utility, and that was 4, because from 0, actually I could make here a 0. So then the marginal utility of the first cookie, that was 4, then it was 3, 2, 1. Then we also looked at total cost. So total cost, if you don't buy a cookie, there's no cost, so 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, because each cookie cost 2. And the last was the marginal cost, MC, and that was always 2. So that was the information from the previous slide. So now we can draw total utility and total cost. So total utility, no cookies on the x-axis. Here we have the cookies. Here we have the cookie. And here we have the total utility and total cost. So no cookie, no total utility, and then 1 cookie 4, 2 cookies 7, 3 cookie total utility of 9, and 4, 10. So now if you look at the total utility, try to draw it nicely, you see why we say it's the law of diminishing returns, because this total utility function increases but at a diminishing rate. What that means is it gets flatter and flatter as we have more. Okay, so you can see that this is a little bit I think we call that concave. So it is bent, slightly bent, and specifically it increases but at a diminishing rate. But if we look at the total cost, that is a straight line, so total cost is the third column or the fourth, TC. So 1 cookie total cost of 2, 2 cookies total cost of 4, 3 cookies total cost of 6, and 4 cookies total cost of 8. So here we have a straight line of total cost. And then if you still remember, we said that the maximum utility we have at 3 cookies, because this is, because at 3 cookies the marginal utility was equal to the marginal cost. And in mathematical terms, the marginal utility is actually the slope of a curve. So now here at 3 cookies we have the profit maximizing or the utility maximizing condition, and that is because the slope here at the total utility function at a quantity of 3, the slope here is the same as here. So that's the mathematical counterpart to the concept of marginal utility. The marginal is mathematically or graphically always the first derivative or the slope of the total function. Okay, so now let's take a look at the marginal utility and let's draw that. And you see here I already start at 1, so I don't need 0. So at one cookie I have a marginal utility of 4. Let's go back to blue. So the marginal utility here is 4, then 3, then at 3 cookies it is 2, and at 4 cookies it is 1. So the marginal utility function is a downward sloped line which captures the idea of the diminishing marginal utility. So this is now here the marginal utility, and the marginal cost is always 2, 2, 2, 2. So the marginal cost is a straight line. So here we have the marginal cost, and here we have the marginal utility. And now we see that here at 3 cookies we have the optimum utility, because marginal utility equals marginal cost. And this is what we said in the earlier video: a economically rational individual will expand consumption up to the point where the marginal utility equals marginal cost. And that is the case here. So, and at 3 we can see that the total utility is 9. So here total utility is 9. The total cost is 6. That means in total we get utility of 9, but we have to pay 6. That means we net a utility of 3. And we can also see that here by, for the first cookie we get a net utility of 2. We get a marginal utility of 4, but we have to pay only 2, so we get 2. And for the second cookie we get a marginal utility of 3, but we have to pay only 2, so we net another 1. And for the third cookie we don't net anything anymore. But if we take this utility or net utility from the first cookie plus the net utility from the second cookie, so 2 plus 1 is equal to this 3. But on the right side you see the marginal perspective, and on the left side you see the total perspective. Okay, so, but what's important is to see here, this is the maximum utility, because the marginal utility equals marginal cost. So you have the first cookie because the marginal utility is 4, but you have to pay only 2. So you take it. If you have a second cookie, you still get a marginal utility of 3, so your willingness to pay is 3, but you have to pay only 2. So you have it. And the third cookie gives you a marginal utility of 2, and you have to pay 2. And then we say that indifference breaks in favor of consumption, and we can see that we maximize utility whenever the marginal utility is equal to the marginal cost. Okay, so let's stop here, and then let's continue with the next principle in the next video.